Iris. My name is Iris Lewis, and I'm your host. I'd like to talk with you today about why every Black American should go to the polls and cast your vote, and to vote for President Barack Obama and the Democratic ticket. By now, many of you have already gone to the polls, and that is awesome. But there are those of us who have not yet made it to the polls. Just in case you're having second thoughts about going through traffic, standing in line, I wanted to remind you of why it's extremely important for you to get out and cast your vote. First of all, it's our duty and our responsibility, not only to ourselves, but in honor of our forebears who sacrificed and died for us to have the right to vote. Not only our recent history, our civil rights icons, Dr. Martin Luther King, Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer, who sacrificed and died for us, but also for our slave ancestors who decided to plant and to build and to have families so that their descendants could one day have the right to vote in the United States of America. Now, if there is no other reason to vote, maybe that would be reason enough. But just in case you need some more reasons on why you should vote, I have some for you. First of all, President Barack Obama is running against Mr. Mitt Romney, who is a Republican. Now, the Republican Party has made its attempt to keep Black people and poor people from going to the polls and voting. Their attempt to disenfranchise Americans who have the legal right to vote is really unconscionable. So my question is, why would you vote for someone who was trying to disenfranchise you, or allow someone to win by not voting who was trying to disenfranchise you? Secondly, the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is made of 12 Supreme Court justices, 4 of whom are in their mid to late 70s. Therefore, the next president might have the opportunity to appoint 2, 3, maybe even 4 Supreme Court justices. Now, there are issues that are coming before the Supreme Court, like affirmative action, Roe versus Wade, and with all of the legal challenges to the Voting Rights Act, it is conceivable that in the not so distant future, the Voting Rights Act will be up again before the Supreme Court. We must ensure that there is a president in the White House who is reasonable and who would appoint Supreme Court justices that would not be attempting to take away rights from Black Americans. Therefore, it makes perfect sense to me that President Barack Obama and the Democrats would be a better choice for Black Americans to win the White House. Next, privatization. One of the things that Mitt Romney keeps saying is that everything possible that he can send back to the states, he wants to. Well, let me tell you that back to the states is another name for privatization. And furthermore, if everything were back in the states, Black people would not have access to public schools, and Jim Crow would still be king. Okay, so what does this mean, privatization? What this means is that Mitt Romney is suggesting that the private sector can better handle the things that government now functions as doing. So what does that mean to you on a practical everyday basis? Really, just practical everyday basis. Now, in the state of Maryland, they're trying out this thing where they're privatizing the Department of Motor Vehicles. And the idea is that if you don't want to wait to go to, stand in line at the DMV. You can go to a gas station, or you can go to, a store. And think of like the post office in the same vein, okay? The catch is, for example, let's say you wanted to turn in your tags, okay? You turn in your tags at the DMV and it's free. You turn in your tags at one of these private enterprises and it's $30. So, you have to say, what it means is that you're going to have less services and you're going to have to pay more for everything that you get. Another example of this privatization is, let's say, the prison system. Did you know that states are currently privatizing their prison system? And what that means is that they are guaranteeing minimum occupancy, because the key goal of a private enterprise is to make a profit. So you will have to, in order for a company to invest in a private enterprise, they have to be at least guaranteed that they're going to break even or make a profit. So you have minimum occupancy requirements. Okay, so now you have the government endorsing immoral and unethical behavior. This is not what it is that we want to do. Obamacare and Medicare and Medicaid, by the way. Another issue with this thing, everything going back to the states. States are required to balance their budget, every year. They can't be in debt. So what that means is that they're going to be doing less with less, right? So let's say, you're on Medicare, or you're 50 to 64 and you're contemplating going on Medicare. If you're a Black American, I know I've met many people who are not able to afford any supplemental Medicare insurance. Now, and many of us who are older adults have medical issues. If Medicare is put on a private exchange, Blacks will have to pay more for their Medicare, and they're going to be provided less services. Medicaid. Did you know that Medicaid pays more than 40% of all nursing home fees? If the government, if states have to contract their spending, what's going to happen to our grandmothers and our aunts who would be in a nursing home funded by Medicaid, but now the resources will not be there? Finally, many people are telling Blacks not to vote for the Democrat Party, not to vote for Barack Obama because of the same-sex marriage issue. Well, I have to say that the challenges that are facing Black American families did not start with Barack Obama and Joe Biden. The challenges facing Black American families have nothing to do with gay rights or same-sex marriage. The challenges facing Black Americans are rooted in economic inequality and the lack of sufficient and appropriate education. Therefore, if there is a call to action, the call to action should be around lifting our people out of poverty and educating our youth and adults so that they can live fulfilling, independent, and productive lives in this country that we all love. For these reasons, everyone must act and vote for President Obama and the Democratic ticket. It does not matter who you are, where you've been, or where you're going. You must go to the polls and vote. If you're a young person, if you're an old person, if you're unemployed, if you're not unemployed, everyone counts. Everyone can make a difference. If for some reason you are not able to vote, maybe you're not old enough, maybe you're a convicted felon and you can't go to the polls and vote, do what you can. Ask the person who is sitting next to you, have you voted? If you can, transport someone to the polls. In one of my favorite stories, Ray Bradbury, in his book entitled The Martian Chronicles, has a short story. It's called 2003, Way in the Middle of the Air. In this story, every one of the black people in the southern town come together to organize, fund, and execute a trip to Mars in search of a better life. Surely, every one of us getting to the polls to vote for President Barack Obama and a Democratic ticket would be easier than that. Let's go to the polls and vote. Let's all move forward.